Hola, mis amigos. Welcome today to the Post Game Show podcast. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are here on Saturday instead of Friday. It's still going to be recorded on Sunday, but a little bit different for us. We got a good episode today, a really good guest, some really good NFL season preview material, and we have a top 5 NBA players of the next decade. So it's definitely going to be a good show. Make sure to follow us on everything, Twitter, Instagram. I think Facebook has a page now too, so make sure you support us because, honestly, that's where we post everything. And if you want to donate to us, we have a Patreon now. And the links are all that will be in the description. But if you're watching on Spotify, just go to our YouTube channel. It's easy. But other than that, I'm here with Tyler. I'm here with Matt. I'm here with Evan, as usual. And our guest today is none other than kicking legend Carter Brown. Carter here is currently the kicker at Franklin College here in Franklin, Indiana. And today we're going to talk a little bit about his career and just some random stuff about his life. So, Carter, introduce yourself, man.
Yeah, I'm Carter. Like he said, I'm a kicker at Franklin College. And, yeah, that's about it.
Quality beard.
Appreciate it.
So, I guess we'll just kind of start from the beginning, man. Obviously, like, us four have known you pretty much for a while, but senior year, I think, is whenever you decide to become a kicker. I know you played soccer basically before that, and then, you're kicking now in college, and you only kicked for 1 year in high school, and I think you even broke records for Newcastle. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so played soccer pretty much my whole life, and got into kicking pretty much because the team my senior year needed a kicker, and a friend of mine reached out and asked if I'd be interested, and got into that as a pretty easy transition from soccer to football. And so then, to talk about like the records and all that stuff, we had a incredible offense led by none other than a left tackle Evan Hosey down there. And so scoring a lot, so I got a lot of chances to kick. So I was really lucky there.
For sure, it was fun to watch. If I'm not mistaken, that was the first winning season Newcastle had in a while, right?
32 years.
Yeah,
32 years. That's pretty cool. So I don't remember this probably obviously as much as you, but the college recruiting process, I know you had a couple colleges before Franklin, and I knew you weren't really even considering kicking at first. So talk about the college recruiting process a little bit.
Yeah, so when I was going into my senior year, I'd pretty much already decided on where I was going to school, and they didn't have a football team. I wasn't planning on kicking, and around March, I kind of started feeling like, I wanted to get back out there and, keep playing. And so by that point, it was pretty late. I'd talked to a few coaches that had stopped by our high school, and a few teams were interested, but at that point, it was getting pretty late in the recruiting process. So I went out and recorded a video. I believe, Grant, you were the one that recorded it with me.
I am.
And yeah, went out to our high school field, recorded a video of me kicking, and emailed it to a bunch of coaches. And Franklin was one of the first to respond, and got on campus and met the coaches and loved it there. So that's how I ended up at Franklin.
That's awesome. And so you get to Franklin now. You just finished your second year there. You've been kicking both years, and pretty much just talk about your experience there, the coaches, obviously having teammates from Newcastle and that you're familiar with, meeting new ones. How's that like compared to high school?
Yeah, so it's been great. As far as the difference between college and high school and college, one thing, at least in the kicking position, it's a lot of watching football, which I love doing. And so at the college level, it's a lot more competitive, and the competition is better. So it's a lot more fun watching games from the college sideline than it is the high school sideline. And been getting ready to start my third year in August, so I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. So One thing I wanted to bring up is I believe last year you went and had a little private workout with the current Browns kicker. You're going to have to help me with his name because I can't remember what it is. So
Austin Seibert.
Austin Seibert, that's what it is.
Yeah.
He's not on a lot of fantasy radars, so that's how I know my kickers.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So talk about that a little bit because that has to be interesting to work out with an NFL kicker.
Yeah, so I followed him on Instagram after he got drafted to the Browns. I like keeping up with NFL kickers and, watching what they post and, learning from guys like that. And so he posted something on his story a few months after he got drafted about him doing workouts with kickers for $100 or something like that. And, I thought it was a great opportunity, and Cleveland's not too far. And so made the drive down there and learned a lot from him. He's especially good at kickoff, and so he taught me a lot about that, how to get my steps all right, and so that was a really cool experience.
Absolutely. So I'm going to hand it off to your current college teammate and host, Evan Hosey. I know he had a few questions for you, and maybe some experiences that we might get to hear too. I don't know, but.
Well, first off, Carter, I just want to say thank you for deciding to continue football. It's been a good time with you in the 3 years we've been together as teammates.
Oh, yeah.
So my first question was, in your 3 years in playing football, who's been your greatest mentor / coach in your kicking career so far?
That's an easy one. I definitely have to go with Coach Tom Lin, my high school kicking coach. He's a little short Vietnamese dude that no one can understand, but I've been with him so long, I can kind of speak his language now, and so he's been great for me. He's always willing to go out and kick with me and help me get better. So he's definitely my greatest mentor.
Yeah, no doubt. He's a great coach and a fun guy to be around. So I've experienced your 3 years in kicking. So, and I think I know a few of these answers. What's been your greatest kicking moment / football moment? Doesn't have to be while you're kicking or actual kick. And what's been your worst?
Okay, so first of all, we'll go greatest. Couple of these, I had one career tackle in high school, and it was decent tackle. I'm pretty proud of that.
Perfect form.
Don't watch film on it. Just take my word. It was a perfect form tackle. And also had a career tackle in college. I think I'm more proud of that because the PAT was blocked, and the guy that blocked it turned around and started kind of blocking me, keeping me from getting to the guy with the ball. And so I shucked him off and chased the other guy down. He got held up right on the sideline. I just threw my arms into him a little bit and knocked him down. And
beautiful moment.
Right next to our sideline, all the guys on the sideline were going crazy. So I think that's my favorite kicking moment.
What about your least favorite?
Oh, least favorite moment. Oh man, I got to go to Defiance freshman year. Yep, I knew you remembered that.
I wanted to bring this one up.
It was an extra point. Planted my left foot into the ground, and my left foot slid about 3 feet, and I fell right on my butt. Sent the kick way right, and yeah, definitely my worst kicking moment.
Yeah, I definitely thought there was like a solid sheet of ice on the field that day, even though it was late September.
Yeah, no ice.
Yeah, another question I wanted to ask you. What's your argument? I mean, I already know your argument, but what do you have to say to people who think that kickers and special teams should be phased out completely out of the game, or and also with that, should they have maybe an altered rules or structure as the XFL did? What's your opinion on that?
So there's a lot of different ways you could go with this. Personally, I think kicking, punting is a huge part of the game. You take extra points. That's usually typically about 1/7 of the points. If not even considering field goals, and so you take those points off the board, and the math gets different. The strategy gets different. So whether or not they're gonna decisions on whether or not to go for it on 4th down, stuff like that changes the whole entire game. And so personally, I think it makes it more interesting. I think it's exciting having the field goal aspect. if you can, all your offense has to do is get to the 40-yard line in the NFL. If your kicker has a big leg, and if they just have to get to the 40-yard line to get some points on the board, I think that's super exciting and makes for a lot of really fun innings to games. You look at the game-winning kicks that Adam Vinatieri has. I mean, the greatest kick of all time, the snow kick when he was playing for the Patriots, and then his game-winning field goals for the Super Bowls that he was in with the Patriots. And so, it just makes for some super awesome endings and makes the game a lot more interesting, personally, I think. And I know the NFL just announced this week that they're pitching an idea for getting rid of onside kicks and changing it to a 4th and 15 rule. The new kickoff rules that they put in a couple years ago, where they only give the guys a 1-yard head start, it made it almost impossible to recover an onside kick. So I see where they're coming from for this. But personally, what I think they should do is go back to the old rule just for onside kicks. So the kicker has to come out and say, we're kicking an onside kick. So yes, it does get rid of like surprise onsides, which were a big part of the game. You look at the Saints and the Colts Super Bowl. The Saints came out at halftime and kicked an onside kick, got the ball back. That doesn't happen, then maybe the Colts have another Super Bowl. But if the kicker comes out, he says, I'm doing an onside kick here, and then the other team knows, but that still increases their chances if they have that 5-yard running head start to go after the ball. And so I think that's what they should do with onside kicks, do something like that, make it more interesting, even change up the onside kick completely, but something other than the 4th and 15, because, onside kicks are super exciting. Your team gets it, they get the ball back, and, it's incredibly exciting, and it keeps teams from, like the Chiefs that are just super explosive offenses, just from being able to, 4th and 15 is nothing for Patrick Mahomes. So
That's what I was going to say. There's teams out there that can literally do that, and it's not even a problem. Onside kicks are supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we are definitely, I believe, a For the Brand podcast. So, I really don't want to see that phased out of the game for sure. I just had another quick little question here. So you mentioned that obviously, as the kicker, you see a lot of other play going on from the sidelines, and you get to see a lot of different positions at work and whatever. So if you could pick another position in like another life, what position would you want to be and why?
I could tell you from watching you out there every game, left tackle or frankly any position on the offensive line would be my last choice for sure. Could never do what you guys do out there. But no, I always wanted to be a wide receiver growing up. I've always loved football, just never got the chance to play it because of soccer. But I always wanted to be a wide receiver. I think that'd be super cool. I'm not fast though.
Absolutely.
Or I can't jump, so neither of those things could have worked out.
Tyler, do you have a question?
Yeah, so Carter, fun question here. If you could hang out for one day with any NFL player, former or current, who would it be and why?
Okay. Hands down, Pat McAfee. He is the greatest punter of all time in my opinion, and he's such an entertainer. He's such a funny guy that it'd be so much fun to hang out with him for any amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. I told the guys before the podcast I was going to ask that question, and I knew what the answer would be. I just wanted to hear you say it.
Yeah.
And I just want to point out that Carter and I, low-key, almost had the opportunity to kind of hang out with him. So
almost. We've had a couple instances where
close.
One day.
Yeah.
So aside from football a little bit, Carter, Evan, and I actually went out to eat tonight, and we were talking a little bit about just some fun times back in high school, because basically our lives revolved around sports for the most part. You would see us at a high school basketball game every weekend, if it's the school we went to or another school, or, just a big game in the area, like we were there. Yeah, exactly. And it just seemed like it was always something we did, and there were so many instances where it was what we like to call geek outs, like why were we doing it? What instance was it? Like, you never know what we were doing. So the question I have is, out of everything we've done in high school, all things considered, involving sports, what was the biggest geek out we did?
Biggest geek out. I think I gotta say driving 2.5 hours on a school night to go and watch an 18-year-old announce where he was going to college. Watching Romeo
Absolutely.
Langford pick IU over Vanderbilt and Kansas. While it was a huge geek out, it was definitely worth it because he picked IU and the whole place went crazy. I'm a big IU fan, and so getting to see that in person was really cool. And so yeah, that was definitely I think the biggest geek out.
I would agree with that. That's definitely in my top 5. Something else, too, that probably not a lot of people know unless you're from Newcastle. Carter Evan and I actually were the broadcasting team, if you want to call it that, for the basketball team that Matt was actually on. And we actually broadcasted a lot of the away games, and we have a lot of weird experiences with that. So it kind of gives us, me and Evan, a little bit of a broadcasting background, if you want to call it that. So with that, what did you like about that? Because I know we had a lot of fun, but there's just a lot we did with that.
Yeah, a lot of, getting to go to all the games was super fun. We went to pretty much all the games anyway, but, a lot of times we had, pretty cool seat. I know at Beach Grove, we literally sat in the corner of on the corner of the court, like 10 feet off the inbounds line. And so that was pretty cool. But, just some of the great calls. I think of Nolan Beam hitting the 3 in garbage time, and Grant just goes crazy on the mic. Like, I think I had
Classic.
to pull my headphones off because you're yelling so loud.
Classic. Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So, really quick, I'm just going to go over I just want to get a one-word reaction on your favorite sports teams because I know what they are. So, for the next season, or let's say in the current season, if it resumes, one word for how you think the season's going to go. We'll start with IU basketball.
This is more than one word, but I'm going to say Sweet 16.
Doesn't count. It doesn't count. Doesn't count.
Okay, one term. We'll go one term.
One term. That's easier.
Okay. Cincinnati Reds.
Playoff.
Indianapolis Colts.
Playoff.
Super Bowl.
Indiana
Super Bowl.
Pacers.
Super Bowl.
This is not your second.
Indiana Pacers. Oladipo. His
Yeah.
year.
And then to end it off, I don't think you have a hockey team, so I want to skip that. But I forgot to do this at the start, so we'll just do it now. This was the question that was let off last week, and I mentioned it to you earlier. And make sure you're involved with this because it's a pretty cool question. We'll go around. So the question I let us off with last week was if you could be with any team in any sport of all time, what team would it be? So, Tyler, since you're on the top left corner, I'll have you start.
All right. I went in a kind of different route for this one, but for mine, I picked the 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers, and this is why. I think that just the whole playoffs for LeBron was probably one of the greatest individual performances ever. I mean, the dude was just relentless, and for him to do that for the city of Cleveland, he's from Ohio. He left but then came back and gave the city that title that they always wanted with LeBron there. I just think that was huge. First title Cleveland's had in a long time for any sport. And, I'm pretty sure that was the year, the salary cap just broke. You got guys like Nicholas Batum making close to $30 million a year. So, and, why not? I can spot up in the corner, make $15 million a year, but anyway, if I was to be a part of one team, I think it would be that team. Just seeing LeBron's greatness firsthand, that'd be pretty incredible.
For sure. I'll go ahead and go since I'm next up on how my computers are lined up. I'm going to go with the Detroit Pistons bad boys back in the day. No one would touch me. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I'm not the type of guy to go out and start swinging and, start pushing people down. But if I'm on the bench or if I'm just that guy that comes out like Benny Johnson, the microwave, and I just come out and shoot some shots, I know my team's got me, and you're going to always remember the bad boys, whether you like them or hate them, and chances are you hate them. And you got to play with people like Isaiah Thomas. You got to play with Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn. Yeah, go Hoosiers. But you're playing with Dennis Rodman. You're playing with people that literally were the toughest people to play in NBA history. And I think if you're on that team, you're literally going to be remembered for all time being the team that beat Michael Jordan before he started that run being Michael Jordan. So it was an easy pick for me. I'll go with the Bad Boys.
Who's next?
It'd be Matt on my screen.
Got you, Matt.
Okay. All right. So I stayed in the hometown. I picked the 97-98 Indiana Pacers. All right. This was the Pacers team that was recently mentioned in the Last Dance documentary, the final episode of that. But just think of this team, okay? I wouldn't start on this team. I'm not going to put myself that high. But Mark Jackson, Reggie Miller, Chris Mullin, Antonio Davis, and Rick Smits. And off the bench, you got me, Dale Davis, Jalen Rose, Travis Best. That team is insane, all right? We should have beat Michael Jordan that year. I wasn't alive then, but I know from some of the stories that my dad is still shaking up about it. A lot of people that I talk to are still shaking up about it. But
Crying.
that is prime Pacers years right there. We were the best during that time. So,
Evan, you're up.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie, I had to Google the top sports teams of all time because I had no idea. And just glancing over, I'm a football guy, so I had to go with a football team. So I went with the 1990s Dallas Cowboys. I think there's a lot of swagger on that team. Obviously, there was a big dynasty during that decade. You got Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman. I would have loved the ground and pound in the trenches for him back then. So that's my pick.
Carter, let's hear it.
So I went with the 1975 Cincinnati Reds, and in my opinion, it's one of the greatest baseball teams of all time. You got 3 Hall of Famers, 4 if you include Pete Rose, which he's in my Hall of Fame all day. You got guys like George Foster, Ken Griffey, Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench, Tony Perez, and then Pete Rose, obviously, just incredible baseball players, and won the 1975 and I believe the 76 World Series. Just a great team. So I'd love to be on that team.
I like that answer. Well, I think that about does it just for our interview portion. Carter, I have a feeling this will not be the last time you're on this show, but thank you for joining us. If you have any closing things you want to say, go ahead and say them.
I'm good. I think you guys covered it.
All right, man. Thanks for being on.
Yep.
All righty. Carter's a good guy, man.
He is. Unfortunately, he has the wrong, college basketball team because Purdue went, 2-0 against IU this year. And yes, I get the last word, Carter, because you left. So,
Boiler up.
I'm honestly surprised no one picked the 2017 Astros.
Yeah, I'd be the guy that hit the trash can.
Yeah, be a good role to have.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be easy, and you're getting paid a lot, so. All right, let's get to it, man. A lot of current events today that really it's kind of a dry sports week, but we'll go ahead and go with it with the biggest stories of the week. And I think personally, the biggest thing is pretty much a certain thing. The NBA's coming back. They're going to probably play in Disney World. We've already talked a lot about like how it should go back and how long it should take. So let's take it a different direction. Do we think they should go straight into the playoffs, or do we play the rest of the regular season?
I'll start with this. I don't think you can go just dive into the playoffs, because a lot of basketball players might not have, they haven't played with their teams, since quarantine. So they would obviously have to pick that back up. I think they wouldn't even necessarily have to finish every game out for the regular season, but play a couple games to, get back in rhythm with your team, run through some stuff before the playoffs time and let some teams solidify their spots who are fighting for playoff positioning, because if someone's at a 9 seed right now, that's not really fair, if they would have had more games to try to get up into the playoff push, So play a certain amount of games. I don't know how many that'd be, probably not a lot, but play a couple regular season games, get back into the swing of things, and then go into the playoffs. That's how I would do it. But, it's going to be interesting to see what they decide to do.
Yeah, I definitely agree because if you're playing out the rest of the regular season, there's 20 games left probably for each team around there.
Yeah.
So you play all of those games and the playoffs. We're going into August with the season. So
Yeah.
like that's just I don't know about that.
Yeah. It would be a shorter off season for the players, and then we don't know what this is going to look like in the fall as far as with the virus. I don't know. Maybe they do something like sort of like a sectional draw where they have just like kind of like in high school where every team gets it's drawn and they just do like a little tournament, decide a tournament winner, and that's the asterisk next to the 2019-2020 NBA season. So I don't know.
There's
Yeah,
not a lot of
I
ways you
was-
can go about it.
Yeah, I was watching First Take the other day, and Stephen A. Smith was talking about this. He was like, since the problem before with having like 16 teams, like the top 16 for the playoffs, the problem with that before was like if the first seed was like in Boston and the last seed was like in LA, that travel would be tough. But now that they're going to have it played in like these two places, we could potentially see the 16-team playoff, just the top 16 teams in the league. So I think that's something that could happen.
That would be crazy too. I was saying earlier tonight, I said just imagine the Lakers as the 1 seed and for some reason the Suns as the last seed, and the Suns come out, Devin Booker scores 80 and beats them. Like you never know. I mean, So I think it would be more of a March Madness feel if we got to see a bigger single elimination, playoff. I think it'd be pretty cool to see. So staying with basketball, actually a pretty good friend of Matt and I's great uncle, Jerry Sloan, legendary coach, passed away last night or yesterday morning. I wanted to talk about him really quick. He's one of those coaches, I would say, when you think about coaches in history, a little bit forgotten, respectfully, never won a finals, but you're still up there in wins. So where do you think he ranks among the all-time coaches?
Like it's in all sports or just NBA?
Basketball, NBA.
Okay. In just NBA, I would say he's top 3, in my opinion. Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich are the only 2 that come to my mind that I would put above him. But Jerry Sloan, I think, is like right there.
Yeah, I agree with Matt. I think he's got to be in the conversation for top 5, if not, top 3. Just for what he did for the game of basketball. Coach that dynamic duo of John Stockton and Karl Malone. It was really fun to watch. But yeah, I'm not gonna rank him out, but I mean, he's definitely one of the top coaches to ever live. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I didn't really know too much about him for The Last Dance, but obviously my favorite Jerry in the documentary compared to the other Jerry. So, yeah, T's and Peace, his family, and rest in peace, Jerry Sloan.
For sure. I'm right there with you guys. I would say he's definitely in my top 3. It's just, a lot of people kind of forget about it. In today's day and age, you only think of championships whenever you think of people. But when you look at overall wins and you look at the era that he basically coached in, it's hard to win a championship then. And it was definitely a really legendary team. When you think of the Jazz, you think of Stockton and Malone, and it wouldn't have been possible without him. So also a pretty good player back in his day too. So rest in peace, Jerry Sloan. I wanted to bring him up for a second. So let's move a little bit to football, a little bit of minor football news this week. Carlos Hyde goes to the Seahawks, which was a little bit surprising to me. I mean, they have like 40 running backs on the roster anyway, and they go ahead and sign another one. So I think that would probably be an indicator that Marshawn Lynch is gone. But what does that mean for Chris Carson, Rashad Penny, and the organization as a whole?
I mean, I think it was a nice addition just in the fact that, Chris Carson and Rashad Penny both, it seems like, have a hard time staying healthy. They are a nice 1-2 punch when both are healthy. But I think Hyde, who's coming off a 1,000-yard season, with the Texans, I think he can add some veteran experience. Carson and Penny both really young in their careers.
Mm-hmm.
I think Carson will still be the undoubted, starter. But it just seems like those guys at some point in the year, that they suffer a season-ending injury, and then, they have to bring Marshawn Lynch out of retirement. They're giving undrafted rookies carries. So I think it's a much-needed, depth add, and he'll get his fair share of touches in that backfield. It'll be a crowded backfield. But, overall, I think it was a pretty solid addition to the team.
Yeah. I definitely think a lot of teams. I think it's a smart move nowadays to go with multi-back, rosters, having more than just one or two key guys, just because it just takes a lot of workload off those top tier backs, and it preserves them for the long term. I think it's definitely a trend now you're seeing in the league. The Colts just drafted Jonathan Taylor with Marlon Mack, and then Matt, help me up with a third back. I know you can't. It's the top of my tongue. He's the guy who helps out a lot. Is it Nyheim
Hines?
Yeah.
Nyheim Hines.
He's definitely one that comes to mind. So, yeah, I think a lot of teams are going to start going to that sort of multi-back scheme just to help out on workload.
Definitely. I agree with that. Definitely a good addition. I agree with you guys. Carlos Hyde, you kind of forget about the seasons he had in San Francisco. I mean, he was considered a top 10, not even 7 or 6 running back in the league. He was just one of those guys that you didn't really hear about, but went to the Browns and then the Texans. No, actually Browns, then Jaguars, then Texans, and then is bouncing to Seattle. So he's becoming one of those running backs that's been going everywhere. But I agree with Tyler, basically a veteran guy there, and it's really the only NFL news this week, so you got to throw something in there about that. So moving on.
Joe Flacco going to the Jets.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. What do you guys think about that?
I don't know.
Backup deal. I mean, Sam Darnold, undoubted starter or unquestioned starter.
Yeah.
They also took a quarterback in the 4th round. So I think it was just a veteran move. Sam Darnold, young in his career. I believe he's only 22 years old. So I mean, might learn a thing or two from Joe Flacco. He's been there. He's won a Super Bowl. So
yeah. All right, so moving on. I know I'm basically the only one here that watches hockey. Evan, I know you've expressed some interest in watching hockey with me when it comes back.
Hockey experts. I don't know what you're talking about.
That is true. We are experts. Big news in the hockey world this week. 24-team playoff format has been proposed and more than likely will be accepted. And a little bit similar to that with baseball. They're pretty much a sure thing coming back with 3 leagues, one based in Florida, one based in Texas, one based in Arizona. So I guess what I'm trying to say with all the leagues here in America, it seems like a lot of them are going to a more spread out format where more teams are making the playoffs. They're trying to make the competition a little bit more diverse rather than just playing your division and you're competing against your division only when it comes to playoff standings. So my question here is the NHL and the MLB are obviously doing this. Do you think this might be a precedent that other leagues will look at, and even the leagues that are doing it will look at and think, man, like this worked and it might have to be something we think about in the future?
That's a good one.
It might affect, what the NBA does, since they're in season. I don't think it will have anything to do with football. I think football will go back to normal, how it is. Maybe they might have a limited capacitance, with fans in attendance, but I don't think like dividing it up and, only certain teams can play other certain teams. I don't think that'll be involved in football necessarily, but it is cool to see. I think with this virus, if it's done anything, it's shown that we've been able to adapt, and why not try it, trial and error. If we don't like it, we'll go back to how we did it in the future, but why not try it out, see how it works, and go from there.
For sure. One thing I love about it, especially with the NHL, is the NHL, I think of all leagues, is the league where the lower seeds can come out and win. It's not going to be like the NBA where, we can sit here and say, yep, Milwaukee's more than likely going to win in the East. The Lakers or the Clippers, either one are going to make it to the finals. In hockey, the number 1 seed, who were the odds-on favorite to win it all, lost in the first round last year, the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think that, it might be cool to see a 24-team playoff because you really would have no clue what's going on. NBA might be a little bit different. MLB, I think you also have a better chance to win if you're a lower seed. But like I said earlier in the show, it's kind of a March Madness feel. You have those Cinderella teams that want to come out and maybe win, and it's cool to see that. rather than, seeing basically the same team. Well, not the same teams, but the teams that are going to make it to the championship make it every year. So definitely a good change of pace, in my opinion. So anyone else have any current events you want to talk about?
No, man. Just go Preds,
Go Preds. Go Pens, man. All right. So our main thing today is going to be an NFL season preview. I'm excited about this. We basically all have a little bit of predictions as far as awards go and the playoff picture. And Tyler and I are going to talk a little bit about fantasy because, like I said before the podcast started, we take this like a religion. It seems like we always pay attention to fantasy football, and it's to the point where I was watching a podcast every single day, listening about who I should pick up and who I should drop, who I should trade for, and everything. So we might talk about that for a little bit too. So let's start a little bit with the awards. I think this is going to be interesting. I'm excited to see who everyone says, and let's just not save the best for last. Let's just start with it. MVP. Tyler, start us off.
All right. For my MVP, this might not be a guy who's, number one on everyone's list, kind of a dark horse MVP candidate. But I'm going with Kyler Murray, Arizona Cardinals. I'm expecting big things not only from him, but the Arizona Cardinals. Year two, Kyler with Cliff Kingsbury. It was working very well towards late at the end of last season, and everyone saw his potential, during his rookie campaign. So I'm really anxious to see what he's done. Obviously, the huge addition of DeAndre Hopkins. You have a young quarterback. How other to better progress that young quarterback than going out and getting one of the top 3 wide receivers in the game. Overall, I think their team just got a lot better, and I think he's gonna, make some noise this year. And he's my MVP pick for the 2020 season.
All right. Just for future reference, you guys, the way on my screen it goes, where it goes around, it would go Tyler, me, Matt, Evan. So if we want to do that for the rest of the show. But I'm going to go with Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen has a really good chance to be MVP. I think he improved a lot in year two. Year one, he wasn't even really considered even the top rookie quarterback. Came out, played, you're playing for Buffalo. The only people that support you are from Buffalo or the Newcastle B-Dubs. But you look at this. He improved in year two with completion percentage and his touchdown to interception ratio. You're showing big moments in the clutch. You basically led your team into the playoffs as a wild card spot. I think that division's the Bills to win right now. I don't think they have anyone competing against them. They're definitely the favorites to win the division right now. And if you look at it, man, they got Stephon Diggs now. His top receiver last year was John Brown. You look at it now, you got Stephon Diggs, you got John Brown, you even got Cole Beasley as your third option. You got a decent running back who likes to catch the ball out of the backfield in Devin Singletary. And honestly, I just don't see how his stats are going to be bad. I think he's going to be a great choice for MVP.
All right. For mine, I went the most underrated quarterback in the league right now, as we've said multiple times on this show. My MVP pick is Russell Wilson for this year. He's coming off arguably his best season yet in the league. Last year he had over 4,100 yards, 31 throwing touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions, along with 342 rushing yards. So that he has always carried that team, and I think this year he's just going to take it to the next level. Honestly, should have won MVP last year. I think he's going to use that as fuel and go nuts this year. So he's my pick for MVP.
Yeah, my pick for MVP. This is the last dance year for him. I believe him and his boys are going to ball out for one last good run for his career to end an epic career. And I have to go with my MVP choice of Drew Brees. I just think even at his age and the point he is in his career, he's still balling out, as you've seen their, late playoff runs before unfortunate officiating calls. And yeah, I just think he's also a good leader for it. He brings the team along with him. And that's why I think Drew Brees is going to be the MVP.
I like it. A lot of good picks. I'm glad no one went with Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. I'm kind of surprised, but definitely some good picks. So let's move to Offensive Rookie of the Year. This might be interesting.
Yeah, I'm not going with the obvious here, but I think this guy is in store for a huge season, and that's partially due to the fact that Patrick Mahomes handpicked this guy in the draft. I'm going with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the running back. I know he hasn't played, any football yet, but, in the NFL, but I think he's going to come in and have a dominant rookie year, even more so dominant than what Josh Jacobs had last year, another first-round running back taken last year. And, who doesn't succeed in that offense, you look what this guy did at LSU was a monster. He's going to come in, he's going to catch passes, he's going to score touchdowns, and, he's going to add more fuel to the fire in that Kansas City offense.
I am going to go with the third quarterback taken in Justin Herbert. I really like Justin Herbert, man. I think that he is in the offense to succeed. I don't see really any situation where he's going to need help receiving. He's got one of the premier tight ends in Hunter Henry. You got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams on the wideout position. So I think, he has the best chance to succeed out of any of the quarterbacks that will be starting this year. And if you look at it, man, he's going to be playing in a decent spot where he's going to be playing teams like, the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Raiders, teams like that in the division where none of them really are known for their big defenses. Maybe the Broncos, but that would maybe be it. And I think he's just in a position to succeed. So I'd say Justin Herbert.
My pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year is Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver picked by the Denver Broncos. I think, like Grant said, I think he's in a situation to succeed. He's got a great offense around him. He's got Drew Lock thrown to him, who I think is going to have a great year himself. I think no less than 1,000 yards for Jerry Jeudy this year, at least 8 or 9 touchdowns.
And I hate to copy, but I have for my Offensive Rookie of the Year Jerry Jeudy as well. I've been big on the Broncos since the draft. I thought they had an incredible draft, and I think they're in a good position for next year, and specifically for Jerry Jeudy to succeed in that offense and the growth they're going to have in this year with Drew Lock taking the reins. So I'm very excited to see what he does as an offensive player for the Broncos.
Yeah.
Let's go to the defensive side, Mr. Jarrett.
I'm honestly surprised no one picked number 1 overall Joe Burrow for that.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
But, Defensive Rookie of the Year, I went in a little different direction too here, Don't get me wrong. I think Chase Young's going to be a double-digit sack guy in his rookie year and might end up being I do think will be a better NFL player overall, but who I think is going to make the biggest impact in their rookie year on the defensive side of the ball, that's Isaiah Simmons, 8th overall pick for the Arizona Cardinals. You talk about a guy who can do it all. This is a hybrid guy, like a Derwin James type player. He can drop back in coverage. He can come up and smoke you in the run game. He can blitz the passer. There's nothing this guy can't do. And for an Arizona team that really was in desperate need for a playmaker on the defensive side of the ball, they went out and got that guy in the draft, and that's Isaiah Simmons. He is going to wreak havoc this year, and he's my pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
I also went a little bit away from the Chase Young pick. I think he's going to have an incredible year, but something's telling me I just don't think he's going to be good enough. So I went with Jeff Okudah. I like him a lot. Definitely my favorite player in the entire draft. I think that he will end up being one of the best corners in the league. Give it maybe 2 years. And I think that the Lions basically hit a home run with this pick. No stats really can tell, how good this guy is. You just have to watch him, and it's going to be hard to watch a Lions game this year unless it's Thanksgiving. But give me Jeff Okudah.
That's crazy. I'm going with Chase Young. The dude is a freak of nature. Him coming off the edge on that Redskins defense, he's going to, like Tyler said, he's going to have double-digit sacks this year. He's going to go nuts. He's a freak. So he's my pick.
Man, you got to stop copying me, dude, because I have
Hey.
Listen.
That's how the order goes.
Listen, I'm just saying, I walk out there on the first play of the season, and I see Chase Young lined up in that 5 tech. I am retiring and walking off the field. I'm going to Vontae Davis at halftime. I am out of the league because, listen, that dude is going to be an animal, especially in the NFC East, there are some decent offensive lines out there, but I think he's going to pass the test when it comes to pass rushing them. And that's why I think Chase Young is going to dominate and be the defensive rookie of the year.
Yeah.
All right. Staying on the defensive side, let's just go overall defensive player of the year.
This one was tough for me. There was a lot of players that were in contention for this one, but I narrowed it down to 2 defensive ends. And I'm going with Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, we all know what happened with him last year against the Steelers, but the dude had 10 sacks in 10 games, 3 forced fumbles. When he's on the field, he is a huge difference maker for this Browns team. And I think this Browns team is going to take a big step, in the right direction in this upcoming season. And he's going to be a huge reason why. I think he's going to come out fired up more than ever after what happened last year, coming off his suspension. And I think he's going to have a tremendous year.
I didn't have a lot of opportunities to put a Patriot in any of these because we're going to suck this year. But I'll put Stephon Gilmore. We're going for it 2 years in a row. Man, you can't not put Stephon Gilmore in contention to this. I mean, if you're looking at the division he plays in, what receivers are you worried about? There's none. I mean, you got Stephon Diggs, but I would still take Gilmore in that matchup. I look at the Patriots' schedule. It's tough. Honestly, I think they were ranked one of the toughest schedules in the league this year. But we're not trying. It's not going to be a year where we're just looking to make the playoffs, and I think that they're going to unleash Gilmore, let him basically do what he wants, line up against who he wants. I don't think it's going to be very strict like it was last year, and I think he's going to have an even better season than he did last year, and it's going to be hard not to give it to him. So let me get a repeat.
All right, I stayed home for this one. I picked the maniac, Darius Leonard. All right, this dude right now I think is the best linebacker in the NFL. Okay, last year only played 13 games, missed 3 games, had 121 tackles, 5 interceptions, and 5 sacks. He returned one of the interceptions for a touchdown. The dude is insane. He can stop the run. He can cover the pass. Best linebacker in the NFL right now. He's my pick.
He got snubbed last year.
He did get snubbed.
Sorry,
I agree. He got snubbed.
Again, so here's my pick. I just picture myself in the pocket looking for a deep ball, and all of a sudden it's lights out. I'm off the field. I'm retiring at halftime because Aaron Donald took me out. Dude is an absolute beast, trains with knives, crazy. He makes women and children cry, and that's why he's going to be the defensive player of the year. Absolute monster and horrifying.
Some people would consider him the best player in the entire league. I would definitely agree with that. So this will be one that you could really go any direction at all. Comeback player of the year.
All right, so I talked a lot about Isaiah Simmons earlier, and I'm going with the guy who I think he's a clone of, and that's Derwin James. This is a guy who missed pretty much the whole season last year. The Chargers extremely dysfunctional last year, going 6-10, missing the playoffs. And that was a large reason in part of Derwin James being out. This guy's a huge difference maker on the defensive side of the ball. And he's going to come in, have a great season. He was one of the guys I had as a contender for Defensive Player of the Year. And I think he's going to have a great year.
I almost went with T.Y. Hilton on this one. I think he's a really good pick. But I'm going to go with one that's a little bit different. I'm going to go with Mitch Trubisky. I think this is a proving year for him. I really like Mitch Trubisky. If you ask a Bears fan, they probably hate him. I'm not even a Bears fan. I like him. I think that he has a really good chance to succeed this year. He might not even get the starting job at first. But I think that this is a contract year. The Bears declined his contract option. He showed flashes at the end of the year. That Thanksgiving game against the Lions, he actually showed his legs a little bit. He's actually showing that he can throw the long ball, and he actually threw some dots in that game. I'll remember it because I had some money on it. But I think that if any player can go out and get a contract this year, it's got to be a quarterback with a big market team, and that's Mitch Trubisky.
All right, so I went really back and forth between these two guys. One of them was Derwin James, but I went the other way. I picked A.J. Green for comeback player of the year. I think this year, if healthy, he's going to be his best year he's ever had. Yeah, they just got Joe Burrow, who is a really good quarterback for him. think back when AJ Green was healthy with Andy Dalton, the dude was insane. He was the only wide receiver they had back then. Now he's got some guys to take the pressure off of him. So I think AJ Green is going to have a stellar year this year.
Yeah, with my comeback player of the year, I decided to go with Todd Gurley. You know, he was a dominant player for a few years there with the Rams, and things kind of turned sour and toxic, and I think he found himself a good situation, the team he's on now, and I think he's going to come out and dominate this year. So,
Good pick. All right, so let's finish our awards off with Coach of the Year.
I think did we miss Offensive Player of the Year?
We did miss Offensive Player of the Year. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. We'll go Offensive Player of the Year.
Offensive Player of the Year. All right, I'm going to have to go with a guy who just absolutely does it all for his team, and that's Christian McCaffrey. No surprise there. Over 1,000 rushing yards, over 1,000 receiving yards. He's their best running back. He's their best receiver. The offense flows through him. And, you know, they just got LSU offensive coordinator Joe Brady to come in as their offensive coordinator, who just gave LSU the most historic season in college football. McCaffrey's going to be even better. I think he's going to have his best season. That's crazy to say because of how great he's been production-wise. But I think he's even going to be even better. Teddy Bridgewater there now. Offense still going to flow through McCaffrey. And, I think he will be Offensive Player of the Year.
I'm going to go with Derrick Henry. I think that this is his year to break out if he hasn't already broken out already. I think that they finally gave him the full-time role last year, and you look at how it went, and look, they were one win away from being in the Super Bowl, and they were close at doing it. So I think that if you unleash him when he finally has a contract, him with Ryan Tannehill, they obviously have chemistry. They're playing in a division where you're playing against the Jaguars, where you're going to probably get a total of 6 or 7 touchdowns just in the 2 games of the whole season, and that's not including your non-conference games or your non-division games, I'm sorry. And I think that if you take into account every running back in the league, you got McCaffrey, you got maybe Saquon and Zeke, and I don't think Derrick Henry's not far behind. I think he might even be ahead of them at this point. So give me Derrick Henry.
That's a good pick. I love Derrick Henry, even though he's in the same division as my Colts. So I went with Michael Thomas, wide receiver for the Saints. This dude does not drop the football, okay? He catches literally anything Drew Brees throws at him. I think this year is going to be his best year yet, even though last year he went nuts. I think this year he's going to go nuts, over 1,500 yards. I think 15 touchdowns this year for him. So that's my pick.
Yeah, Matt and Tyler just must have copied off my note sheet before the show, but I have Christian McCaffrey as my Offensive Player of the Year. I think it was – I know at least Grant and I can't remember who else might have went, but we went to a Colts versus Panthers game this year, and literally every single play it was Christian McCaffrey. Toss out Christian McCaffrey, run up the middle, Christian McCaffrey. Dude just does it all for the team. Huge offensive weapon, can pound the rock. And I think he's going to dominate this year, especially under, as Tyler said, the new LSU coordinator that came aboard and Matt Rule also coming aboard. So it's going to be a good year for him.
All right, now Coach of the Year.
All right, this is one I went back and forth on a lot, but I'm going to have to give it to Kevin Stefanski, the new head coach for the Browns, and I'll tell you why. I think the Browns are going to take a huge step this year. I'll get into their, predicted record when we get to our playoff picture after this. But I think the Browns are going to take a huge step. And, you just look at the Browns organization as a whole. When's the last time, they've had a good head coach? You go from Hugh Jackson, Freddie Kitchens, intern Greg Williams. This guy, he really took Kirk Cousins' game to the next level as an offensive coordinator in Minnesota. I think he's got it figured out. The Browns, on paper, one of the best rosters in the league, and I think this has been the missing piece. I think he's going to be a huge key for Baker Mayfield's development. And, I think the Browns are going to make some noise this year, led by Kevin Stefanski.
I'm staying with the Bills. Sean McDermott. I think he's going to win Coach of the Year. I think this team has a chance to go to the Super Bowl. I really do. And I think that at the end of the day, even if they don't, they're going to take a huge step. and they're not doing it with any superstar talent unless you consider Josh Allen a superstar. And they got a really good defense. They got really good corners, and I think that at the end, like, you're going to see the usual teams in the playoffs in the AFC. You got Baltimore, Kansas City. I think Buffalo has a chance to gun for that first or second seed. They're going to have the best record they've had in a very long time, and that's going to be due to the coaching of Sean McDermott. So that's who I picked.
All right, so for my pick, I went with Frank Reich, Indianapolis Colts head coach. I think this guy is one of the best coaches in the NFL right now. The Colts filled every need that we needed to succeed this year. We got a good veteran quarterback in Phillip Rivers leading us on. I think we've got a great chance to go at least 12-4 this year. So I'd say Frank Reich is the NFL Coach of the Year.
Yeah, for coach of the year for me, I'm gonna have to go with. It's kind of a toss-up here. I had two options written down, but I think last minute I'm gonna go with Mike Vrabel. Let me try that again. Mike Vrabel, for the Tennessee Titans. I've watched a couple podcasts with him. Taylor Lewan's podcast. He's had him on. He's just a player's coach. I mean, he was a player. He's a very good player, and he's built a lot of trust up with his guys. And obviously, they're making huge turnaround with the culture and success of the Titans down there in Tennessee. And I think they're going to be a very scary team especially our Colts to play in the AFC South in the near future. And especially other teams in the league. And they made a run last year in the playoffs. So I think he's set for another big year, and excited to see what he does. And I think he'll, be the coach of the year.
All right. Definitely some cool picks. I said before the show started, I thought it was going to be a lot of dark horse picks, and it seemed like there was. So let's go to the playoff picture. So basically just giving the 1 through 7, starting with the AFC. Tyler, start us off.
Yeah, so 7 spots now. The 1 seed is the only team that gets the first round bye now. 3 wild card teams, and then the other 4 division winners. So for mine, I looked at every team and predicted their record, and not every team, just the teams I think are going to make the playoffs or borderline teams, and I kind of made my list like that. For the 1 seed for the AFC side, I went with the Kansas City Chiefs with a 12-4 record. I think their division got a lot better, but I think it's going to be them and the Ravens. But the Chiefs play the Ravens week 3, and I had the Chiefs, winning that head-to-head matchup. So I have them at the 1 seed. Obviously, the Ravens at the 2 seed. Their division got better. That I have them also finishing with a 12-4 record, same as the Chiefs. But like I said, the Chiefs got that head-to-head win, which put them over the top. So Chiefs 1, Ravens 2. 3, I have the Indianapolis Colts winning the AFC South with an 11-5 record. One of the most improved teams, in the offseason, going from 7-9. I think they're at least a double-digit win team this year. I have them at 11 wins in the 3 seed. For the 4 seed, I have the Buffalo Bills winning the AFC East with a 10-6 record. Grant's obviously pretty high on the Bills this year, with the departure of Tom Brady, but I think they easily win that division. I think they're easily a 10-win team. So I have them at the 4 seed. For my first wild card team, I have the Cleveland Browns also with a 10-6 record. Like I said, I'm really high on them this year. I think they take that next big step with new head coach, dominant roster. So the Browns are my 5 seed at 10-6. For my second wild card team at the 6 seed, I have the Denver Broncos with a 9-7 record. I really like what Drew Lock did at the end of the year, and they went out and got him weapons. Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. Year 2 for Noah Fant. Cortland Sutton is an emerging star. And I like what the Broncos are capable of. And for my last wild card spot, the 7 seed, I'm going with the Tennessee Titans with an 8-8 record. I think they're better than an 8-8 team, but they have a pretty tough schedule, and I have them edging out the Chargers and the Steelers for that final wild card spot. So 1 through 7, I have the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Colts, the Bills, the Browns, the Broncos, and the Titans for the AFC side.
All right. So I have Baltimore winning the AFC again. I think they're going to be the 1 seed. I think that they're going to be even better than they were last year. You got Lamar, year 2 of his dominant campaign as a starter. So I think they're going to be even better. And that 2 seed, I'm going with my new team this year, the Buffalo Bills. I think they're gonna shock the world, and I think they have a chance to go to the Super Bowl, like I said earlier. And I think they're gonna dominate their division. Number 3, I got the Chiefs. You could even see it this year. They're not a dominant regular season team, but when they come to the playoffs, they know what to do. And I don't think they're worried too much about seeding. I think they're just worried about getting to the playoffs. And there'll be times where Mahomes is proven to not be the safest quarterback out there. Kelsey's not the healthiest tight end out there. And Tyreek Hill's not the smartest receiver out there. So you look at their roster, you think at least one of those guys will go down in some way or fashion. So I have them at 3. And this might be a unpopular opinion for you 3, but I have the Tennessee Titans winning their division. I think that, looking at their campaign in the playoffs, they could have beat anybody, and they did not lose any key pieces. Their receivers are only getting better. They don't have any old receivers, and they have Derrick Henry in the backfield, not to mention a decent defense and a pretty good offensive line. So I think Tennessee even has a chance to be higher. With the wild cards, I do have Cleveland at number 5. Like you said, Tyler, they're only going to improve with the new head coach. This is going to be a year for Baker to look at, I was the number 1 pick at one point. I need to prove it. And it'll be time for the Browns to look a different direction if he doesn't prove it this year. So it would only make sense that he improves. 6th seed, I do have the LA Chargers. I think that the Chargers are going to make a huge jump, like I said earlier in the podcast. They got Justin Herbert. They got the great weapons, and they got Derwin James, Joey Bosa, and really good players on defense as well. I know I'm forgetting a couple, Casey Hayward. But I think they're going to be 6, and I will put the Colts at 7. I think the Colts are going to barely squeak in there. I do think they might be better than my prediction. They do have a pretty easy schedule, but at the same time, they're playing in a tough division because people are still sleeping on Houston. I know they just traded DeAndre Hopkins, but they still have Deshaun Watson. They have J.J. Watt. They have a really good roster aside from trading one of their best players, which still doesn't make sense. And you never know. David Johnson might come out and be the running back he was 3 years ago. So that's my AFC picture.
All right, so for my 1 seed, I went with the Kansas City Chiefs, the most high-powered offense in the NFL. No need for a lot of explanation there. Really tough team to beat. Number 2, I'm putting my Indianapolis Colts. Have one of the easiest schedules in the whole league this year. Like I said earlier, we filled every single need that we needed. We've got Phillip Rivers leading us on. I think we're gonna do big things in the AFC. Number 3, I have the Buffalo Bills. I'm really high on the Bills this year. I think Josh Allen is going to be a top MVP candidate. Even though I didn't pick him for my MVP, I think he's going to have a stellar year. He can get it done with his arm and his legs. And then number 4, I have the Ravens. I have them going 11-5 this year. I think they're obviously a very high-powered offense. Lamar Jackson is a freak. But we saw last year against the Titans that they can be beat in the playoffs. So I went them at number 4. My first wild card spot, I went the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs in the league. Ryan Tannehill, very underrated quarterback. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now as far as skill. But the Titans are a really good team. Number 6, I went the Denver Broncos. I love their offense. I'm a big fan of Drew Lock. I think he's going to do big things. He's got a guy like Jerry Jeudy now that he can throw to, a real stud. And then on my final playoff spot, I put the Browns sneaking in there with an 8-8 record. I think with the new head coach, they'll do really good things. They have one of the most talented offenses in the whole NFL. So I think that's what puts them in that last spot in the AFC. So 1 through 7, I have Chiefs, Colts, Bills, Ravens, Titans, Broncos, and Browns.
All right. So for AFC, I have the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are going to come in there. Andy Reid's going to call plays, play sheet in left hand, cheeseburger in the right hand. Next, I have the Baltimore Ravens. You know, Lamar is going to come with some visions after coming up short in the playoffs last year. Number 3, I have the Bills going to smash through tables literally and physically. Number 4, I have the Steelers down there in Yinzerville are going to Big Ben's coming back clean and trim. He's going to throw some bombs to Juju Smith-Schuster. Minka Fitzpatrick is going to dominate. I have the Colts, number 5. You know, Major Phillip Rivers is going to come in and sling the gun around for us. Number 6, I have the Titans, Mike Vrabel. I said his name right that time. He's going to come in with Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, strong defense, and give the Colts a run for their money in the AFC South. My 7th spot, I have the Broncos and Browns fighting for it. Obviously, the Browns' new head coach, be interested to see what Kevin Stefanski can do with the team. A lot of offensive weapons there. Be interested to see what they can do in the season. Broncos, big fan of them coming out of the draft. And expect big things out of them offensively and defensively. They still have Von Miller and Bradley Chubb and a lot of other defensive players that are key. So that's kind of my AFC rundown.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for taking the Patriots off that. I want them to be the worst team in the league, so I'm glad no one put them on the list. So let's go to the NFC.
All right, for the NFC, everyone knows how high I am on Russell Wilson. I think he's going to get it done again. I have number 1 seed Seattle Seahawks. They're in a really tough division, but at the end of the day, after looking at their schedule, I think they're going to win, double-digit games again. Russell Wilson going to have one of the best years of his career. I have them at a 12-4 record with the 1 seed. Number 2, I'm going with the New Orleans Saints. I think their division got a lot better, so I don't think they're going to dominate as easily as they did last year. So Drew Brees, like Evan said, I think he realizes he's, at the end of his career. He needs to get it done this year. I have the Saints at 11-5, number 2. And then number 3, I have the Minnesota Vikings. I think they're going to take control of that division this year. A lot of drama going on in Green Bay right now. I'm not sold on them. They won a lot of games last year by 1 score or less. And, I'm just, with the Aaron Rodgers situation, I'm not so sure about Green Bay right now. Number 4, I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they're going to win that division. I'm not sold on the Cowboys. I think the Eagles win the division with a 9-7 record, but get that 4 seed. For the 5 seed, I'm going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, this is a team I really liked, and now they add Tom Brady to go with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, O.J. Howard, Rob Gronkowski, couple studs on defense, and a great head coach in Bruce Arians. So they're my 5 seed at 11-5. My 6 seed, San Francisco 49ers, also with 11-5 record. Tough division, but obviously they lose to Forrest Buckner, huge loss, but they kind of get some of that back with Javon Kinlaw, 14th pick in the draft, and then they add another weapon for Jimmy Garoppolo in the first round as well. Deebo Samuel year 2, I'm looking forward to that, and also Nick Bosa, who I think could be and end up being the defensive player of the year as well. They still have him. So 49ers as my 6 seed. My 7 seed might be a surprise to some. I'm going with the Arizona Cardinals. I talked earlier about how, Kyler Murray, I expect him to, have an MVP caliber season. He's my projected MVP. I talked about Isaiah Simmons, who I think is going to end up being the defensive rookie of the year. And I just, if it weren't for the division that they're in, I think, they could even be better than that. But they're in a really tough division. I have the Cardinals edging out the Packers and the Cowboys and squeezing in that final spot for the playoffs at a 9-7 record. So 1 through 7, I have the Seahawks, Saints, Vikings, Eagles, Buccaneers, 49ers, and the Cardinals.
Well, you can tell I went a different direction because my 1 seed's the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are going to have a great season.
Wow.
I don't think that the Cowboys are going to repeat what they did last season. I think that they finally have a solid receiving core where you got 3 weapons Dak can throw to. And if Dak goes down, you got somebody waiting in the background in Andy Dalton. You got arguably the best running back in the league in the backfield. And that defense is pretty good too. One of my favorite defensive players, Leighton Vander Esch, is on that side of the ball. And that one, somebody help me out on his name. He just got reinstated. He can play again. Alden Smith, I think his name is. He just got reinstated to play. And I just think the Cowboys, this is going to be a year where, Jerry Jones, I hate to say it, but he's getting old. You know, and I think he wants to see a Super Bowl before he dies, and this will be his only chance. And I think that this roster right now is built to succeed, and I think that they're going to be a 1 seed. I really do. The 2 seed, I have the Saints. Basically, everything that we've said on this show about the Saints is what I'm going to say. Drew Brees is possible and probable last season. You got Michael Thomas. You got Alvin Kamara. You also have 2 good quarterbacks behind Drew Brees, surprisingly. Jameis Winston, and just came out this week they want Taysom Hill to take over when Brees retires. So, and then they also have a very good defense as well. So I got them at 2. I have the Seahawks at 3. I think the Seahawks are going to run that division. I don't think the 49ers will repeat what they did last year. At 4, I still have the Packers winning their division. I like the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is undebated or unquestionably one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time, and he's still not at that point where you're saying he's getting old. And I think that maybe he's going to use this thing where they're drafting another quarterback as motivation, maybe showing them that he's still got it, maybe pressuring them to trade him to a team that needs a quarterback later in the season or next year. You never know what they might do there. I don't know. The first wild card spot, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Definitely my favorite receiving core in the league with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Gronkowski just came on this offseason. Then you got Tom Brady, obviously, and the running back's really the only question. But Ronald Jones is showing some improvement, and I think that he could have a breakout year, knowing that he's basically getting an all-star cast around him. Number 6, I have the Arizona Cardinals as well. I think the Cardinals are going to make a jump this year, and looking at basically the roster now, they might be a year or 2 out, but they can start early, and I think that this is a year they could start early. They have one of the best receivers in the league and a really, really good young quarterback throwing to him. And you can't forget about Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk, really good receiving core. And you got Isaiah Simmons on the other side of the ball just drafted. And, it's just a solid defense all around. And at number 7, I'm going to throw in the Los Angeles Rams. I think that they did miss the playoffs this year or last year. But, they do have a stud defensive end, Michael Brockers, on the defensive side of the ball. Definitely one of the best players in the league. And then, they also have the other guy, Aaron Donald. But on the offensive side – you got Jared Goff. Cooper Kupp had a breakout season. Robert Woods. And then they have Josh Reynolds. He's going to have a little breakout season, in my opinion, because they just traded away Brandon Cooks. So I think that the Rams will squeak in there. And it was tough leaving off some notable teams like the Eagles, the Vikings, and the Falcons were originally in my list, and I took them off. But I think this is a year for young and up-and-coming teams to make that jump.
All right. So for my number 1 seed, I went the New Orleans Saints. I think Drew Brees, like Evan said earlier, this is his last dance, so he's going to go nuts this year. I think they have a really good chance to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC. If it weren't for my number 2 team, the Seattle Seahawks, Russell Wilson, I think, is going to lead them. He could lead them. He's going to lead them to the NFC Championship. I have them finishing with a 12-4 record. They're going to run. Like you guys said, they're going to run all over that division. They've got, I think, the 49ers, like you said, are not going to be as successful. Number 3, I have the Vikings. I think they're going to be a great team this year. They're going to run over their division. I see them beating every single team in their division both times. Number 4, I have the Cowboys. They added another big talent, CeeDee Lamb, to their already talented offense. I think this year is going to be Dak Prescott's best year. Number 5, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was really hard for me to put them above the Saints, honestly. But I think bringing in Tom Brady is the best thing they needed, because now they have a quarterback that won't throw 30 interceptions and will actually take care of the ball, and they could get a lot more scores and be a more powerful offense. Number 6, I put the 49ers. Like I said, I don't think they're going to be as great as they were last year, but they will still be very successful. And then I also put the Cardinals in my 7th spot. I think Kyler Murray, this is going to be his year to show what he can really do. I think he's going to have not as dominant of a year as Lamar had last year, but very similar. So, yeah, 1 through 7, I have Saints, Seahawks, Vikings, Cowboys, Buccaneers, 49ers, and Cardinals.
Yeah, for my NFC picks, I have number 1, I have the 49ers and the handsome Jimmy G is going to get it done with Kyle Shanahan and their offense. Number 2, I have the last dance of the Saints and Drew Brees. I think they're going to fight for their boy Drew this year and really push for a deep playoff run. Number 3, I have the Green Bay Packers. Aaron's going to come with some vengeance after the disgrace he was dealt in the NFL draft by Gutekunst. And number 4, I have Seattle. Russ is going to dip and dive all over the place over the NFC West. Number 5, I had the Vikings. Honestly, don't know. I just thought they're – I don't know why. I just think they're in that somewhere in there. Number 6, I have the Cowboys. Jerry Jones, obviously, even if Mike McCarthy doesn't do well, I think Jerry Jones is going to come out down there and call some plays. Number 7, I have kind of a fight and claw for that spot. I have the Bucs and the Cardinals. I think both those teams are poised for interesting seasons, and I think one of them will end up in that spot.
All right, definitely some interesting answers.
You guys are haters. No one had the Eagles winning the division? Come on.
No, man.
Not sold on the Eagles.
Okay. Eagles got better, Cowboys got worse, and the Eagles still made it last year.
Telling you, man, Cowboys are that 1 seed. I'm telling you. Remember this episode. The Cowboys are going to be the 1 seed. Clip that. But all right, so let's move on to fantasy. I think we kind of talked a little bit before the show that Tyler and I are going to kind of run this little segment briefly. Tyler had a good idea that probably in the future we'll have a little bit of a fantasy special because all 4 of us are in the same league. And I know Tyler and I are both in multiple leagues. So let's just talk a little bit about it, Tyler. What do you think?
I was just looking at some of the guys, the first, second, third rounds. There's a lot of studs this year. I think a lot of people are going to be really satisfied with their teams after the first 3 to 4 rounds. A lot of studs, guys that are going to be there in the second, third round that usually aren't there. And, but I do want to ask you, there's a lot of debate. If you had the first pick in your fantasy football draft, who would you take? It's obviously between 1 and 2 guys, but,
Yeah. It's hard not to take McCaffrey. You have to take Christian McCaffrey at this point, especially with the team around him now. You don't have Cam Newton, so they're going to be hesitant to throw the ball. They do have Teddy Bridgewater, though, and I'll give them that. They do have Teddy. But when you're at that goal line, you're giving the ball to Christian McCaffrey, and I think that if you have the number 1 pick, you have to take him. But unless you have another one, because you said you had 2 guys.
Yeah, I would go with McCaffrey as well. If I had a fantasy draft right now, I would definitely go McCaffrey. But the other one I was considering is Saquon Barkley. Only reason I said that, Saquon, obviously, I think he's going to be a top 2 to 3 fantasy player every year that he's in the league, until he levels off maybe. But, I think Daniel Jones, year 2, they go out, get a dominant left tackle in the draft. They also drafted a right tackle. So they're improving that offensive line to protect Daniel Jones, to protect Saquon. Daniel Jones, I think, is going to be better, which could open up the run game. Saquon getting more involved in the pass game. I definitely think these guys will go 1 and 2 in every draft, depending on how you have them ranked. But at the moment, I think you have to have Christian McCaffrey as your number 1. Coming off a season where he rushed for over 1,000 yards, caught over 100 passes, 1,000 receiving yards. I don't even want to guess how many touchdowns, probably in the range of 14 to 16 total touchdowns as well. So I think he's the guy for the number 1 pick.
I agree completely. So who do you have kind of as a sleeper this year that might have a little bit of a boom upside to him?
I actually had 2 guys for this because, I couldn't decide between the 2. But for where you can get them, I think these are guys that could potentially win you a league. One of them is Deebo Samuel for the 49ers. You saw what the 49ers were able to do with him, especially late in the season. They use him all over the place. Jet sweeps, down the field, underneath. He's going to be the number 1 receiver I think he's going to be their number one option on offense, other than George Kittle. But, he's going to be involved in a lot of different ways. And the other guy I have as a potential sleeper is Henry Ruggs, the rookie receiver for the now Las Vegas Raiders. They're in desperate need of a number one receiver after the Antonio Brown situation didn't work out. This guy is Tyreek Hill-like, man. He's got that Tyreek Hill speed. He can stretch the field. He's going to open up this offense in many different ways. And I think he's going to have a Deebo Samuel type role as well, where they get him involved on the jet sweeps. They get him the ball in space. And, he's going to be a big-time deep ball catcher for this team after he blows by corners. So those are two sleepers for me.
I actually had two as well. The first one I had is if you would have said he was a sleeper 3 years ago, it would have been funny. David Johnson, I kind of mentioned him earlier on the show. I think he could win you a league. I don't think he's going to be drafted in the first round of any draft unless you're really reaching and you're in a big 14-team league. But I think when you think of David Johnson, you look back at when he was on the Cardinals, and he was considered at some points the best running back in the league. And now you're in an offense with Deshaun Watson and, where running backs like Carlos Hyde came out last year and made themselves something, and Lamar Miller before that, Arian Foster even before that. The Texans have always been known to have good running backs, and I think that David Johnson, if he maximizes his potential, could end up being your running back one. And for a wide receiver, I like Devontae Parker this year. I think that Devontae Parker, when you look at him on the Dolphins, last year was finally that year where every year, you're expecting him to break out. Never happened. Last year, Ryan Fitzpatrick made him a relevant receiver. He was one of those guys that you could feel comfortable starting as your wide receiver 2 or your flex. And now he's got Tua, who's going to take over that team. You have a better wide receiver throwing, or you have a better quarterback throwing to you. And he's the best receiver in that offense. I don't see anyone that's better than him. And I think that when you look at his talent, it's finally getting to the point where you can trust him. So I like Devontae Parker. So what about a bust?
All right. If you're going off last season, this is a guy who probably won a lot of people some leagues. This guy was literally a touchdown machine. But for where you have to take him this year, you're going to have to take him in the top 20 picks. I'm just not comfortable doing that, and that's Aaron Jones, running back for the Packers. The reason I say that is it's not anything against Aaron Jones. I think he's a great back. But you look at what Matt LaFleur did for Derrick Henry. It was like a running back by committee for Henry when he was in Tennessee with Dion Lewis. They didn't maximize his potential. When LaFleur leaves, Derrick Henry has a monstrous season. I just don't like that for Aaron Jones. Also, they have Jamal Williams there, who they love getting involved in the pass game. And then on top of that, instead of drafting a position of need for the Packers, like a receiver or someone on the defensive side of the ball, they draft another running back in the second round. You don't do that with the other needs that you have unless you see something in that running back. So for where you have to get him, I'm not buying in on Aaron Jones in a top 20 pick. I think, this is a guy who could potentially, if you take him in the top 20 picks, your draft's pretty much ruined unless you hit on a lot of later picks.
I agree on that. And it sucks because I love Aaron Jones. I had him in 3 leagues last year, and he won me in my big league. So it sucks to hear that, but I agree with you. My bust is not necessarily somebody you consider like a top pick. I would say you would draft him in the top 30. That's Juju Smith-Schuster. He did not have a good year last year at all. Unfortunately, Matt pawned him off on me, and I picked him up, and it didn't work. But I had trust in him, man. I saw the talent, and I said, you know what? I don't care who's throwing to him. He's still going to get his touchdowns. It just never really stuck out to me. I watched my fair share of Steelers games, I hate to say, but I did. And I look at even with Big Ben coming back, people are going to say, oh, man, Big Ben's back. You got to pick him high. I don't think he has the talent to be the best receiver on a team. I think whenever Antonio Brown was there and he was the second option, that's his role. That's his role he needs to have for the rest of his career. Being the number one option ain't it. I don't think that you're going to get any value out of him at the spot you have to pick him, and I will definitely not take him in any league that I'm in. So, I think that
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
I got Yeah, I was just gonna ask you one more
Yeah.
thing. You know, I'm looking at first round outlook and fantasy drafts. You know, who do you think are locks to go in the first round of your fantasy drafts? You know, I have 7 who I think that are locks to go in just about every first round, and then there's like borderline guys. So who do you
Yeah.
think is like a lock to go in the first round?
I would say Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott. I would throw Michael Thomas into there. Give me Derrick Henry and throw me Nick Chubb. Yeah, I'll take 6 there. Throw Dalvin Cook in there. That's 7. That would be my 7.
Yeah, for my 7, I had McCaffrey, Barkley, Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, Michael Thomas, Derrick Henry, and Alvin Kamara. And then, in my opinion, you know, there's just some borderline guys. You know, I'm just gonna, you know, briefly mention some: DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Julio Jones, and possibly, depending on what league you're in, Lamar Jackson maybe. So, like I said, a lot of studs this year in fantasy, and you know, we'll get into more of that, you know, when it gets closer to the fantasy season. We just wanted to, you know, give you guys a little preview and go into that.
For sure, yeah. So moving on to our final segment, we got our top 5. We changed it to top 5. I think that's what we'll do from now on because our episodes are getting pretty long. I understand that. So we went to a top 5, and this week is going to be NBA players in the next decade. So when you think we're going to be in the year 2030, who are we going to say are the top 5 players of the last decade? So we'll do it with our normal format. We'll go 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. And Tyler, go ahead and start us.
All right. This list was very hard for me to make. I don't know how it was for you guys. A lot of guys who are very deserving, I think, to be on this list who aren't. I had about 6 guys that I wanted to put in the honorable mention, but I just decided not to. But for my number 5, I'm going with Trae Young. 21 years old. You talk about a guy who can do it all, man. I mean, this guy can score from anywhere on the court. He's a guy who can give you 25 a night, and he gets his teammates involved so well. I mean, he's a guy who I think is going to be a guy who averages 25 and 10 for his career, and I mean, that's just insane to me. Dominant offensive player, and if I'm building a franchise, I mean, this is one of the first guys I'm taking is Trae Young. I mean, the dude is literally lights out from 3. Like I said, you have to guard him as soon as he comes across half court, gets his teammates involved. He's a walking 25 and 10. Give me Trae Young.
I also had Trae Young at number 5. I think Trae Young, basically everything you said. You know, he's a great shooter. Young Steph Curry could end up being just like Steph Curry, you know, and he's basically the corner piece of that Hawks franchise, and they're trying to build around him. And at only his second year, he was an all-star starter, and that's saying something. So Trae Young.
My number 5, I had Ben Simmons. The dude is literally a 6'10" point guard. He's a matchup nightmare, much like Giannis, but he's not quite there yet. But I think in the next 10 years, he's going to do something good in Philly. Him and Embiid are going to lead the way. I think I'll take Ben Simmons at number 5.
Yeah, for my number 5, I had I couldn't really pick one of them out of the 2, but I have Domantas Sabonis and Oladipo. I do really think that they're growing players. I think at first it was kind of labeled as a bad trade on the Pacers end of things when getting rid of Paul George. You know, we got a bag of Doritos and Oladipo, but I really think that they've been productive members and leaders of the team, and Domantas is growing, especially in this season that got shortened. And Oladipo, of course, is returning from injury, so he'll be interesting to see in the future. So I'm excited for those 2.
Number 4.
All right, for my number 4, I almost didn't put him on the list because he's kind of older. He's not old, but kind of older. He's 20. He just turned 27. So I was debating, but I had to put him on the list because he's a top 5 player in the NBA right now, and I think he's going to continue to grow. And that's Anthony Davis. You know, I think this is a guy who's easily going to still be one of the top players in his age 36 to 37 campaign. And when you look back at the 2020s decade, I think he's going to, like I said, going to be a consistent top 5 player in the NBA through those years. So, you know, there's no other more dominant big man in the league right now, in my opinion, than Anthony Davis. So he's my number 4.
I have a rising star, and personally, probably my favorite player in the league, and that's Jason Tatum. I think Tatum's going to end up being one of the faces of the NBA for the next 10 years. And I think, looking back at my entire life, one of the most fun stretches I've ever had watching basketball was this year when Jason Tatum absolutely went crazy. It all started that game against the Clippers where he won in that game for the Celtics in double overtime. And then he went on to score crazy amounts of points on and on and on. And I think that thinking about the future, there's nobody that has tools like Jason Tatum. Well, there's not many people that do. And I think you can't leave him off this list. So I got Jason Tatum.
My number 4, I put Trae Young. Like Grant said, I think this dude is just a younger Steph Curry. The dude can literally pull up from anywhere. One of the best ball handlers in the league, and he's really new to the league. So I have him at my number 4.
For my number 4, I had a little bit of heat for cutting him last week, but I have Luka as my number 4 spot. I wasn't even going to try to say his last name because I'd mess it up. But, yeah, I just think he's a young player who's coming up and had a good season this year. I'm excited to see what he does in the future.
Number 3.
All right, for my number 3, if it weren't for durability issues and health concerns, he would probably be higher on the list. But I'm going with Zion Williamson, only 19 years old. The dude played 29 minutes a game in his rookie year and averaged 23.6 points a game, 7 boards, 2 assists on 59% shooting. It's hard to do that as a rookie in the NBA. You don't see it very often. And he's just a matchup nightmare for everyone. He's really positionless. He can do it all. He can guard every position. He can play every position. To me, I think he's going to be one of the faces of the NBA, for a long time. So I'm going with Zion.
I have Luka Doncic at 3. I think he has MVP written all over him. He will win multiple in his career. And I believe Mark Cuban came out and said about a week or two ago that they made the mistake of letting go of Steve Nash whenever they had the potential to make that duo of Nash and Nowitzki. And now they have the same European duo, basically, of Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. And I think that if they keep that duo and develop them into their prime, the Mavericks will be one of the best teams of this decade. And that's all going to be because of Luka. So he's my number 3.
My number 3, I also put Zion. This dude's literally a freak of nature. He's like 6'7", 270. He can jump out of the gym. Like, that's insane. I think he's going to be one of the best players in the next couple of years, and through the next decade, I think he'll be top 3 for sure. So give me Zion at number 3.
For my number 3, I have Jason Tatum. You guys touched on a little bit. He's just, I think, from what I've seen, dominant player, young. So I think he's going to do well in the NBA the next decade.
Numero 2.
For my number 2 spot, I'm going Luka Doncic, 21 years old. The dude does it all. Rebounds well, passes well, extremely efficient scorer from all 3 levels. Like Grant said, I think multiple MVPs are in store for Luka, when it's all said and done. And I like the Mavericks moving forward as a team. I think they, can maybe make some pushes, post LeBron and post Clippers era. I think that they're going to be able to compete, with that young core of Doncic and Porzingis. And I think he's one of the best all-around players in the league right now at 21 years old. So give me Luka at number 2.
At number 2, I have the Greek freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think that right now he is the best player in the league. And you know what? I'll leave it there. I know who you guys know who I have at number 1, but I'll leave it there. Giannis at 2.
All right. Wow. Okay. At my number 2, Tyler, I think we've got the same list almost except for Simmons and Davis, but my number 2 is also Luka Doncic. This dude is insane. He's basically a point guard for them. I think the duo of him and Porzingis is going to be one of the best duos of all time. It could be. It has that potential. And I've always loved foreign players, and I just love how Luka plays. And like Grant said, I agree. I think he'll win multiple MVPs throughout his career and potentially one in the next 2 or 3 years. So at my number 2, I have Luka.
Yeah, for my number 2, like you guys mentioned, I have Zion. He's a very dominant player. And, he's obviously just starting out, beginning of the decade, so it's going to be a long, great decade for him.
Number 1.
I know Grant doesn't have someone that's played 19 career NBA games over the Greek Freak. But for my number 1, I'm going with Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak, top 3 player in the league right now, maybe the best, only 25 years old. He's going to continue to be the best player in the league, into his age 35 season, 10 years from now. The dude's dominant. You can't stop him. If he gets in the paint, it's over. He's dunking on everybody. He's a walking 25 and 12 every night, extremely efficient on defense, gets his teammates involved. He does it all. He's already won 1 MVP. I would expect, 4 to 5 more when it's all said and done. The Bucks, as long as he's there, should contend every single year in the East. So, with that being said, I think he's going to win multiple rings as well, just because they're going to walk to the finals every year. That's why I have Giannis at number 1.
I'm a believer, man. Zion at number 1. Now, this is why. I love what Max Kellerman said a long time ago on First Take, and I will never forget it because it made so much sense. The most hype ever by somebody coming out of high school is LeBron James. The most hype ever coming out of college is Anthony Davis. The most hype ever coming out as a one and done is Zion Williamson. You look at Zion Williamson, he will be up there with everyone. You have all the tools you need as a superstar. You already have the face of the NBA basically on you before you even played a game. And already, I'll give you the injury concerns. He has them. But he came in and he showed why he has the hype. He's playing like an all-star. He would have made the all-star game if he played the whole season. And you already have a great cast around you, and that's the main reason I have him at number 1. If he sticks with the Pelicans and they keep that young core together, think of how good that team's going to be. Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and Jackson Hayes. And not even including Nigel Williams-Goss off the bench. Is that – yeah. No, that's not who I was thinking of. Whatever.
Nikhil Alexander.
Nikhil Alexander. I knew it was 3 names. Thanks for helping me. But, hey, that team is going to be good. Give them 2 or 3 years. And I'm just saying, he has the tools to do it. He had the hype behind him. He's going to be the best player the next decade.
Yeah, I got the Greek Freak number 1. He, just like his nickname says, is a freak. The dude is a 7-foot point guard. He's starting to develop a shooting game. And I think with the rumors going around, he might leave the Bucks. I don't know. If he leaves, I think he'll be just as dominant no matter where he goes. I think in the next 10 years, I don't know. He might end up by the end of his career a top 5 player of all time. But I think in the next 10 years, he's definitely going to be the best player by far.
Yep, I have a similar pick. Giannis is number 1. The Greek Freak had a great shoe back in the day with the Greek flag on it. I've loved him ever since I was given him in our NBA All-Star sort of drawing for the dunk. Was it the dunk competition?
Yeah.
I had no idea who he was. Thought it was a weird name, had a weird shoe. But you know what? He's my guy now. He's number 1 for the next decade.
Awesome. Yeah, I had to be different again, but this one I actually do. I actually feel this one. I do think Zion will be – he's going to be something. I can't sit here and convince you because he's only played 19 games, but you just got to have to wait.
He's going to be – unquestioned. He's going to be a superstar. But I can't put him over Giannis yet, man. I can't do it yet.
Respectable. So that just about does it, man. A little bit of a closing thoughts, as usual. 1, Gunna's album was trash. 2, KBO action tonight. Let's all root for the LG Twins. Can't wait to see them absolutely go crazy tonight. KBO, most interesting league out right now. And that's actually about it for me.
Okay, I'll go. Well, first of all, it's Memorial Day weekend, so shout out to all of our troops overseas or at home defending us, as well as those who have served and sacrificed in the past. So everyone have a good, relaxing Memorial Day weekend. If you ever have somewhere with beautiful weather, get out and enjoy it. So I want to end sort of my thoughts with a question to follow up with the next podcast. So there's been some talk lately of the discovery of a possible parallel universe. Pretty cool, some sci-fi stuff going on there. So my question is, if a parallel universe exists, what sports event in that parallel universe would go differently there than what happened in our reality as far as like championships, trades, draft picks, big moments? What would go differently there versus here? Like the opposite.
I like that question.
We'll get back to it in the next show.
Good question.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, listening. Be sure to follow us on all forms of social media. Donate to our Patreon if you want. Tune in next week. We're going to have another exciting episode. And, thanks for the support.
Yeah, thanks everybody for watching. If you're somewhere where the quarantine is getting lifted, be safe, please. Wear a mask. If you're sick, stay home. Do all that good stuff. Use hand sanitizer. But I know I'm definitely glad for things to be going back to normal because me and Grant, we coach a baseball team.
Go Knights.
Baseball team. Go Knights. And we just had our first practices this past week, so I know we're really excited for that. But, yeah, thanks for watching, everybody, every week. Like Tyler said, follow us on all of our social medias. We'll be posting on there a lot. So, yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Adios, amigos.